Good morning and welcome to Tuesday, May 5th here at TD. I want to welcome all of our students, our staff, and the rest of the community. I'm holding a guitar. I'm not playing it right now, but I am filming a part for our video that the staff is preparing for Grandparents' Day. Again, we are really excited about Grandparents' Day, and it is on Thursday, so again, make sure that you are letting your grandparents know, if they don't already know, that we have a special virtual assembly for them on Thursday. We are actually going to kick things off today with a special devotion that was actually a spoken word, and it was actually presented at a church by two of our former grads. So the spoken word is created by Chris Van Solen, and he graduated in 2007, and the video that goes along with it is created by a graduate named Caleb Smith, and he graduated in 2015. So without further ado, our devotion today is from them.
Christ alone, lifted up, his fever high, his body cold, his breath shortening. He pleaded with his Father in the garden, and the 11 first. The 11 fell asleep, and then the 12th came with a kiss, before a sword swung, a wounded ear rehung, and then like serpents slinging under rocks, all 12 left. So hanged up, abandoned, his cup running over, hanging on a tree before a crowd, yet in extremist isolation. One friend stayed to hold his screaming mother, but the other 10 denying, friends with backs turned, nursing doubts, and if confronted, disavowing, more than once. Hanged up, broken, beaten. The 12th so torn apart with guilt, his brain so racked, he's hanging on a tree himself, a woeful act of extremist self-flagellation, and him hanged up for hours, till lips chapped and cracking meet a sponge of some mixed wine. But it's enough to hack out. Father, why have you forsaken? Forgive them. While he hangs, his chest heaving, ceasing. And then a side splitting, water pouring from an emptied self, mother weeping, holding onto her new son as the ties around the Christ's wrists come undone, the thorn crown crushed, the nails pulled, the temple curtain torn. So Christ alone, lowered down, wrapped and bound and placed behind a stone, and the 11 and his mother, the other Mary and Martha and Lazarus and the man from Arimathea all weep. But heaven resounds. This torn temple curtain tearing down the separation between God and his creation. Even now the heel is lowered on the twisting serpent's head, and the angels Gloria and Hallelujah in canticled oration. And then Mary in the garden, Peter on the shore of Galilee, John at dinner when he was breaking bread, 500 at one time. In these places, at these moments, they begin to see him, to seek and find him. Seeds of understanding taking root and drawing them together in himself, transcending coldest isolation. In his ascendant life, lifting up their certain deaths from desolation to new heights of warmest affirmation. And then Paul, and then Stephen see him, and Monica, and Augustine, and Zhang, and Juan, and Teresa, and Carol, and Io, and Marina all see him in different places, at different moments. His kingdom coming, his earth becoming more and ever more fulfilled in him, instilled with him, and the desire to do his will. And so we lift him up. Christ alone.
yeah, just a really powerful piece of writing and a powerful piece of photography through there. So thank you to those guys for letting us use those today in our devotions. Moving on here in the assembly, I am very excited to introduce to you the next segment, backed by popular demand and hopefully tasting better than her banana bread. We have Cooking with Miss Contos.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the second episode of Cooking with Contos. Today we're going to be cooking a meal that I believe is traditionally Mexican. I can't remember the actual name of it, but my mom and my grandma always cooked it when I was growing up. It's really easy, and I'm going to be using tortilla to make it today, but you can also use corn chips if you'd like, and that just adds a different texture and different taste to it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to whisk up the eggs over here. I'm using free-range organic brown eggs. Alright, so first we're going to start out by putting the burner to medium-high heat. We're going to use olive oil and butter before we throw in the tortillas. So first I'm going to put in olive oil. We're going to add the butter. So when the butter is almost completely melted, I would throw in the tortillas and make sure that those are coated with some of the butter and oil as well. And depending on how crispy you want those, you might want to let them just sit for a little bit and then turn them occasionally until they're to your liking. So depending on how crispy you want them, I like them a little bit crispy. Just wait until they're a little bit brown and crispy, and then you're going to add in your eggs. Now, this is the part where you want to turn down the heat a little bit because you don't want the eggs to cook too quickly. You're going to let those sit for a second so the eggs cook, and then you're going to turn them again. So the eggs should look a little bit scrambled. And you're just waiting for them to cook before you add in your sauce and your cheese. The next step is a little bit tricky. So you want to add your sauce just before the eggs are cooked, and then you want to add the cheese when the eggs are basically cooked. So here I have some homemade sauce that I just whipped up in my free time. And I'm going to pour some on the tortillas. How much you use is up to you. I think I'm going to go with about 3, maybe, let's say 4 tablespoons. I'm going to turn down my heat now because my eggs are basically all cooked. Now, I'm going to add my cheese. I'm going to take about half my cheese and put it on top there. Now I'm actually going to turn off the burner so we still have enough heat to melt this cheese. I'm going to stir everything up. And then I'm going to add the rest of the cheese so that it's evenly distributed. And I always like adding a little bit of crunch on top, so I add lettuce. You can add more cheese if you'd like. Some people add ketchup, which I find insulting. But there you have it. It's a nice tortilla, egg, and cheese dish with some lettuce on top, and it's pretty delicious and easy to make.
Well, thank you, Miss Contos. I like ketchup with a lot of things, so I would probably use it with your meal as well, but again, I appreciate that segment. We are moving on now, and I would like to introduce to you a video that was created by Chloe in grade 9, and she reached out to me through Mr. Sharda about showing some of her artwork and explaining some of her illustrations from a couple of assignments that she was working on in English. So thank you, Chloe, and she does the rest of the job to introduce what she's been doing.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Chloe, and I am a grade 9 student from Mr. Sharda's English class. Because of Mr. Sharda's suggestion, I decided to show you some of the artworks I created for projects during English class. So, the first drawing I have for you is the On the Sidewalk Bleeding poster. This is probably the drawing I spent the most time on, generally because of the size of the drawing surface and the details I had to put in. Coloring every character and object was the most challenging part of the process, but at the end, I was satisfied with the result. Up next, I will show you a short time-lapse video of me coloring some parts of the poster. As you can see, I'm coloring the person in the poster with various colors. Mixing different but similar colors can help you to create a natural blend which makes the features of the character look more natural. Here I used some really bright yellow to create the effect of a street light. I also used a thin black pen to draw out each piece of hair to make it further detailed and realistic. Although this project took quite a long time and required a lot of effort, I really enjoyed it. Next is my illustration from my English short story assignment. The title of my short story was A Spring Morning at a Royal Palace, and the story was written based on the trip I went to with my family. During the trip, my family and I stayed at a traditional Korean tile house, and we saw many cherry blossom trees when we went outside. Recalling that memory, I drew the house and the cherry blossom tree, with myself enjoying the view from the tile house. Up next are the illustrations I drew for another short story I wrote called Epiphany at 20. This short story was about a young man who previously pushed himself to become successful in engineering, just like his older brother. However, the path he took did not suit him, nor was he skilled at it. So, he wonders for something else that he couldn't really work for. And finally, he meets a man whose words make him realize that there is a path chosen for him to take, a doctor who saves people's lives. This first drawing shows the main character studying for a university entrance exam. You will realize at the end that I only used pencils instead of color pencils because I wanted to give a more serious effect on the illustrations, since the story itself has quite a serious mood. The second drawing is an old man and the main character talking together in a bathhouse. For those of you who are not familiar of what a bathhouse is a public facility made for bathing purposes only. This drawing shows the main character in a facial expression which shows sudden realization and shock. This is when epiphany strikes him, and from then, he's determined to become a doctor who can save other people's lives, just like the man who he was talking to in the bathhouse. I focused the most on this particular illustration, since this part is the climax of my story. The fourth illustration shows that the main character has been successful as a doctor. It displayed that he went on the right path and he is feeling happiness and pride in what he does for other people, which is the moral of the story. There is always a time for everything. Don't be desperate, but be patient. And last but not least, the fifth illustration. Simply a loaf of bread. Well, there's a meaning behind it. Life is like a bread dough. It is a mixture of happiness, struggles, depression, surprises, and so much more than you can think of. It tends to burn more than being baked perfectly in the oven. This is the metaphor that I thought of while drawing this illustration, and I personally believe that this particular illustration is the most meaningful out of all of the illustrations I drew. And that was my introduction about my artwork that I created for the projects we had in English class. Drawing is one of my most favorite things to do, so I really enjoy doing these assignments despite some of the challenges. Thank you for listening to my presentation.
Well, thank you, Chloe. Just fantastic, and thank you for showing your work. And we are going to leave off today with one last commercial for Homework Club. So here's the commercial, and have a good rest of your day.
Homework Club! Homework Club! Hey everyone, just a friendly reminder that Homework Club takes place on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 3:15 to 5. You can click on the link in the morning announcements on Edspeed. See you there!